Welcome back. Now, as we speak, our correspondents are currently on ground at the Ministry of Finance to get the breakdown of the 2024 budget presented earlier today by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu at the National Assembly. While that is happening, we will be breaking down, the presentation and expectations of Nigerians as regards the funding of projects targeted for 2024. I've been joined now by a legal practitioner, a lawyer, and a policy analyst, talking about Mr. Ojaka. Ojaka, you just know how to do justice to the issue at hand. Good afternoon, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mr. Amadin, for having me.
It's good to have you. Just like I said, our correspondents are on ground now, about to, bring to the public the words of the ministry in terms of breaking down what's going on. But let's talk about what happened earlier today, where the President was on ground himself at the National Assembly. I'd like to get your thoughts as to a speech generally, the reception. Interestingly enough, we saw that an anthem was played right before the President talked and after, which was his popular song during the campaign on your mandates, that mandate song. So I'd like to get your thoughts. Did you think what we saw today gives us an inkling of what to expect as to the relationship between the National Assembly and President Bola Tinubu?
Thank you very much. The National Assembly, as a matter of fact, have been romancing themselves with the executive. Of course, we don't expect anything different. Of course, we expect that relationship should bring development to the betterment of Nigerians. We are not going to be like the 8th Assembly, of course, where the executive and that of the legislature had their disagreement, which is normal. But I want the Senate President to realize that that is another arms of government, and he'll be held accountable for whatever role he's going to play within his tenure as the Senate President, including that of the Speaker. We've seen the case of Emefiele, who was the CBN President or Governor, as the case may be. Today he's in jail because he fails to take responsibility of the office he was bestowed upon. So every member of the executive should not manipulate the other arms of government. They should strive. So we want the executive and the National Assembly to have that harmonious interest for Nigerians. We don't have issues with that. So let the budget say, but one thing we need to understand in this budget, how much is this budget we're talking about? A budget of 27 point something trillion naira, and 8 point something trillion naira is going for debt. Like you're paying debt that you borrowed for previous administration. So what we have left is just barely 9 point something trillion naira, which of course salaries and every other thing eats from it. The same security that has been there, insecurity that has been there, of course, is 80% of almost that budget. And then what happens to the other part of it? Of course, the National Assembly, they are the same people that are eating fat on this same budget. What is left for the common man is the civil servant that receive the peanuts. So how many development is going to come up within this period with such budget of 9 point something trillion naira after paying the debt? So we should be honest with ourselves. If we expect something different, we should stop this budget where we do budget and almost 50% of that budget goes to service debt. It's not helping us. It's really not helping us.
Well, I believe the arguments they've been making is that this is the situation they met, even though recently President Tinubu wrote to access loans which was taken in the Buhari tenure. But that aside, what do you think should be the ideal kind of budget that could give Nigerians hope? And I mean this in terms of allocation. We saw that in the supplementary budget, which was passed recently, there was little or perhaps no mention or no attention given to health. And it's such a major sector and it seemed overlooked. So this time around, what in your opinion would show resolve in terms of the allocations? What sectors do you think require the most attention at this moment in time?
Mr. Amadin, all sectors deserve priority. If you give attention to security and neglect education, you're still going to have a problem. Currently, we are in short supply of lecturers in our various universities. That, of course, as you are aware, the Ojaka syndrome is there, where lecturers, including our students, because everybody won the best for the award, I can't have a child schooling in Nigerian university, of course, where strike threatens the child who was supposed to run for a 4-year course, end up doing 6-7 years course. We all went to Nigerian University. We had the younger ones who spent 7 years in a 4-year course. So we are saying that if you don't give priorities to education, there is a problem. And then if you don't give solutions, or if you don't carve out a reasonable amount for health, there's also a challenge, because people will die. And when people die, definitely the doctors are handicapped to how many lives they can save. How many doctors we have left in Nigeria? We saw that recently under the last administration, how doctors were killed in this country. That forced many doctors to relocate abroad. And for that reason, we are also having shortage of doctors. Go to our hospital, my dear, you cry. Lives are being wasted on a daily basis in Nigerian hospital because priorities are not given to the health sector. So you see why I said every of this area needs urgent attention. The health, the education, the economic itself is already in coma. Of course, we are not shying away from the truth that even the same members of the same last administration who are in this administration are also saying that they are in coma. Who put it in coma? They put it in coma. And they are also recycling themselves again in this administration again to defend the same budget. The same budget that they borrowed in the other administration is what they are borrowing in this administration to pay the same amount they spend lavishly on things that were irrelevant to the economic of this country. So in this budget, we must understand that it is their attitude in previous administration that is putting us in this debt that we are paying. How can we be servicing the loan all the time? And we are still borrowing. We are still going to sponsor this other this budget. For how long do we continue to borrow to sponsor our budget? For how long? They must stop the culture or the tradition where they have to borrow money to sponsor our budget.
Yes, that's fair enough, especially when the president said trillions had been saved due to fuel subsidy removal. People are wondering, is borrowing always the answer? But that being said, the issue of implementation, I believe some lawyers, some of your colleagues have said that Nigeria doesn't have a problem with law, that we actually have quite a robust amount of laws that cover a diverse set of issues, but that the problem is usually implementation. So whenever budget comes, what do you think can be going to be done to sort of lead to implementation of the budget? I'll cite an example. We saw budget recently compiled a list of all the what they call I believe it's frivolous spending or so in the supplementary budget, and they asked sent it to the Secretary of the Government of the Federation, and the reply was that it was already too late, that it was passed. And that being said, even though civil societies want to help, they're being told that it's too late. This time around, what do you think can be done to ensure implementation? And if during this process, Nigerian civil societies, opposition, media start to find, troublesome or worrisome stipulations in the budget, what do you think can be done?
Now, the 2024 budget has been described as a budget for renewed hope. Which particular area are we going to renew hope? Because it seems like all the areas, all hope is lost. Starting from the judiciary, the economy, the universities, our hospitals, all the hope there is lost. That's why people are relocating. Now, this budget seems to focus on 5 priorities, according to what the president said, which include local job creation, microeconomic stability, investment, environmental and optimization, and human capital development, poverty reduction, and security and social security. Well, these are good plans, but like I said, these are dictionary words. Somebody just went to the dictionary and picked all of these words. Oh, they are good words. It sounds good. Poverty reduction. How do you now reduce poverty? Now, it might interest you that in Nigeria, only 60 million out of over 200 million are employed both federal, state, and local government in the Nigerian system. So it means that, let's minus the children, over 100 million are unemployed. So what exactly are you going to give them, or what are you going to bring to the table that both the educated and the non-educated, the artisans, all of them will be able to strive and be able to provide their daily bread for themselves. Do we have light, stable light, electricity supply? Do we have good roads? Do we even have, does the government even have transport system for civil servants to go to their offices? Now, the whole of the subsidy came. It came with different challenges. What was this challenge? The subsidy were removed, but the alternative of how these people find way to survive were actually not there. Is that what you are going to see in this budget? Let me remind you, my brother, what is worth doing is worth doing well. If they must get it right, it is high time they look at who is going to monitor this budget. Now, all the ministries have submitted their budget before you have the total of this budget. All the agencies, all the paramilitary, and all of that. Now, who is going to monitor it? Nobody monitors it. They collect this money and then they spend this money lavishly. Once they pay salary, the rest of it is history. So the budget presentation done by the president, we don't have issues with it. It's the implementation. Who is going to monitor the implementations of it? Because you are not a contract for someone. The person does not even do that project. Who monitors the person? Is there a punishment for that person? People, of course, embezzle this money. You are giving somebody, okay, fine, in the ministry, you are giving the person 5 billion naira. And the person probably used 2 billion naira and do a minor project. What happened to the other 3 billion? He returns 2 billion back to the government at the end of the year, and then the government clap for him and say, oh, fine, thank you for returning 2 billion. And the other 1 billion, he pockets it. That's what we are seeing in different ministries. At the end of this year, you see how people now return whatever they have not spent. Who is asking you to refund money? The government is asking you to work with that money for the betterment of the people, not to refund it. But as you are aware, when these monies are returned, there are benefits given to the person who, of course, returned this money. They are incentive. So the person just want to use a little part of it and reserve the other one and go back to Oga and say, Oga, I have spent, 30% of your money. I already have 70%. That's okay, fine. Bring 50%. Thank you for doing well. Then take 20%. And the next year, it goes on like that. So we really need to checkmate ourselves. How are these budget implemented? It is the implementation we want. You have awarded a certain amount for security. This security, have the crime stopped? Have you been able to eradicate Boko Haram? Have you been able to eradicate the killing that is going on in Nigeria? Of course, these are citizens of Nigeria. You are supposed to defend them. But how have you been able to defend them? With this budget, the budget should be able to stop hunger. The budget should be able to stop killing. The budget should be able to provide drugs in our hospital. That's what it means by transition of the budget for the common man to benefit. The budget should be able to stop the Jata syndrome, where people are now looking for where the grass is greener. The budget should be able to provide job for our graduates. Do you know how many coppers have passed through the NYC this year alone? Now, systematically, the NYC graduate nothing less than how many of this million every year? How many of them has the government employed? It's a question for another day.
Thank you so much, Mr. Ojaka. It's been a pleasure talking to you. I can hear now from our correspondents that we're about ready to get back to the Ministry of Finance. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
Yes, right now we'll join Folarin at the Ministry of Finance as they break down the budget and the different items what President Bola Ahmed presented earlier today at the National Assembly. We'll definitely bring you more analysis and more coverage as it unfolds. See you tomorrow and bye for now. I am Amadin.